improved so much. I played her at the beginning of the year, so I know what I'm up against, and I will just try to do my best again, and I know it's going to be a tough match. I have so much respect for her game. I'm doing a lot of good things. She was just playing much better than me, and I was just waiting for a window where maybe I can get a little bit more aggressive and I can get a point here and there, and got her in trouble. And yeah, I was a bit lucky, played good in a good moment.
Did you hear that? Play it back one more time. Because what you just witnessed wasn't merely fan enthusiasm, commentary analysis, or Filipino media optimism. That was the competitor who will step onto that identical court against Alexandra Eala in 48 hours, look directly into her eyes across the net, and attempt with complete determination to shatter this Miami fairy tale once more. That was her Saturday opponent, offering genuine praise unprompted, without hesitation, without diplomatic hedging or strategic evasion. Absorb that reality. This transcends a simple press conference soundbite. This represents the entire tennis universe declaring in real time, through the voices of the actual players blocking Eala's path to the round of 16, that what's unfolding at Miami Open 2026 surpasses anything this tournament has witnessed in its history.
Been such a phenomenon to see the support you've gotten all over the world. Is there any place that surprised you that you were like, wow, I didn't know there were so many Filipinos here?
No, because we are kind of everywhere. Yeah, we are everywhere, I have noticed.
We're dissecting every syllable, every nuance, everything this means for Saturday's showdown, for Eala's ranking trajectory, for the tournament landscape, and for the 115 million Filipinos who haven't experienced proper sleep since Thursday dawn. Buckle up, you need to absorb all of this. Let's begin with Thursday, because before Linette uttered one syllable about Eala, before that media session, before that quote, before any of it materialized, Alex Eala accomplished something on Hard Rock Stadium's surface that deserved front-page coverage across every sports publication globally. She battled through the most extended match of her complete WTA career, 3 hours and 20 minutes, against 38-year-old German seasoned campaigner Laura Siegemund, positioned 53rd globally, a competitor who has maintained professional status for 2 complete decades and who possesses every tactical manipulation imaginable. This wasn't a seamless, commanding 3-set victory. This was warfare, a bitter, contentious, physically devastating warfare.
I had to be patient. I'm sorry, the match was so long, I lost my voice. I think patience was key, and waiting for the right moments, you know. Yeah, patience, a lot of patience.
Both competitors lodged complaints with the chair umpire in this heated encounter. While Eala served at 2-1 in the second set, Siegemund wandered around after the Filipino player disrupted her ball toss. Eala objected to Siegemund's deliberate delays between points, psychological warfare against a player who has been executing these tactics since before Alex Eala could properly grip a racket. And Eala, 20 years old, protecting 390 points during the highest pressure tournament of her season, didn't buckle, didn't collapse, didn't allow the mind games to penetrate her focus. Eala had commanded 3-0, 5-4, and 6-5 advantages in the opening set. She squandered 4 set opportunities. Then she lost the tiebreak. The first set vanished. Over an hour and 20 minutes of tennis, and she possessed nothing tangible for her efforts. For a different competitor, that becomes the moment heads drop, shoulders collapse inward, crowds grow silent, and opponents detect weakness. But Eala returned and broke Siegemund's serve early in both the second and third sets. Clinical, efficient, merciless. The match that appeared destined to spiral into catastrophe transformed into a declaration. It ranked as the 5th most extended tour-level encounter of the complete 2026 season, and she departed the court, stared directly at the camera, and inscribed 2 words on the lens: déjà vu. She then stated in her on-court interview, "It definitely was close, very demanding physically and mentally, but that was one of my goals last year after this tournament, to improve physically. And here I am, fresh as a flower. Fresh as a flower."
It definitely was close, very demanding physically and mentally, but that was one of my goals last year after this tournament, was to improve physically, and here I am, fresh as a flower, so yeah.
Alex, final question. Positioned 140th globally. Following 3 hours and 20 minutes against a 2-decade veteran who attempted psychological destabilization throughout, fresh as a flower, and the critics who had been preparing their Eala is too delicate for extended battles narratives since Indian Wells received a statement they cannot deploy. You don't label someone fragile after they endure the 5th longest match of the season and characterize themselves as fresh as a flower. The WTA video of her post-match interview accumulated over 153,000 views and surpassed 9,200 reactions on Facebook within the initial 2 hours. Her match highlights were viewed more than 280,000 times and generated over 10,000 reactions within the first 3 hours. 153,000 views for a post-match interview following a second-round triumph. At an event where the reigning world #1 and defending champion is also competing, the distance between Alex Eala's digital impact and everyone else at this tournament is so massive that comparisons feel almost unjust. But this represents the reality the WTA currently inhabits, and it's the reality that Magda Linette entered directly when she defeated Swiatek that identical afternoon. Now let's examine what Linette actually accomplished, because it was extraordinary, and because it explains why Saturday's match represents the most complex, most dangerous, most captivating matchup remaining in the women's draw. Magda Linette, world number 50, 34 years old, a player who had just fallen in the first round at Indian Wells 2 weeks prior, stepped onto center court at Hard Rock Stadium and defeated Iga Swiatek, 6-time Grand Slam champion, reigning Wimbledon champion, the second seed 167-563. It marked Swiatek's first opening match defeat at a WTA Tour event in 74 consecutive tournaments. 74, that's not a streak, that's an empire. And Linette, coached by the legendary Agnieszka Radwanska, arguably the greatest Polish women's player of the contemporary era, just terminated it. At the tournament where Swiatek anticipated meeting the girl who embarrassed her 12 months ago and finally resolving the score.
Następna piłka. Cały czas w dyscyplinie.
Well, you can see she's competing against the very best here tonight. Didn't need to go that close to the line there.
Swiatek couldn't capitalize. She earned just 1 break opportunity total in the second and third sets. I stopped executing anything well tactically, she admitted. It just was a terrible match for me in the second and third sets. The second seed eliminated. The marquee rematch cancelled. The draw exploded open. And then Linette positioned herself before the cameras and she declared it, "I'm happy that Filipinos are being exposed to tennis." That represents the moment. And now let's discuss precisely why those 8 words constitute one of the most meaningful statements voiced at this entire tournament. This is where most people conclude. They play the clip, they say, "Wow, that's pleasant," and they proceed onward. But we're not proceeding onward, because those 8 words contain a complete philosophy. And once you comprehend what actually exists within them, you cannot unhear it. Magda Linette is 34 years old. She has been a professional tennis player since 2009. She has competed at Australian Opens and Wimbledons and US Opens and Roland Garros. She has witnessed every type of crowd, every type of atmosphere, every type of narrative that professional tennis offers in 17 years on tour. She reached a Grand Slam semi-final. She captured 3 WTA titles. She has performed before partisan crowds in Poland, before hostile crowds in America, before indifferent crowds at small tournaments in countries where tennis barely registers. And she observed what Alex Eala has done to the tennis world and said, "I am happy," not, "She's a talented player," not, "It should be an excellent match." Not the type of diplomatic bland response that players provide when they're attempting to say something without saying anything. She said happy, genuinely, openly, publicly happy that because of this 20-year-old Filipino girl, an entirely new nation of people is watching the sport that Linette has dedicated 17 years of her life to. She said, "I just had to pursue a little bit more. I had to begin hitting a little bit faster too, to push her a little bit more back, not provide her space. But I think it all began with serving a bit better." That was her tactical analysis of defeating Swiatek. Precise, professional, no celebration, no drama. And then, when the conversation shifted to her next opponent, she abandoned the tactics completely and led with her heart. That contrast represents everything. She remains cold and clinical about the biggest victory of her 2026 season, and she remains warm and generous about the 20-year-old she must defeat on Saturday. Because Magda Linette, despite all the pressure of this moment, understands something the critics will never understand. Alex Eala is not merely her opponent. Alex Eala is the reason this match matters, the reason this center court will be packed, the reason this round of 32 will be broadcast into living rooms in Manila and Dubai and Los Angeles and London, and everywhere a Filipino flag has ever been planted. And Linette, who has spent 17 years fighting for relevance in a sport that can be brutally indifferent to players outside the top 10, is grateful for it. Because when you have given everything to a sport and then watched a 20-year-old girl from a country nobody expected suddenly make that sport matter to 115 million new people, the only honest response is, I am happy. But now let's be brutally honest about what Saturday actually means, because gratitude is beautiful and the praise is real and the moment is everything. But at the end of it, Magda Linette is coming for Alex Eala with everything she has. And she has more than people realize. Their head-to-head stands at 2-1 in Linette's favor. She beat Eala in Abu Dhabi in 2024 7-6-6-1. She beat Eala in Ningbo in 2025 6-4-6-3. She knows this game. She has sat across the net from Eala and worked out the angles. She has a coach, Agnieszka Radwanska, who can see tactical vulnerabilities that most people watching from the stands would never spot in 100 viewings. She is currently coached by former world number 2 Agnieszka Radwanska, one of the greatest Polish tennis players of all time, and Radwanska built her career on reading opponents, on deconstructing games, on finding the seam between a player's strength and their vulnerability, and exploiting it with surgical precision. She will have spent Thursday evening going through Eala's match against Siegemund, frame by frame. She will have found things. She will have given Linette a plan. Eala reversed the head-to-head in Auckland in January 2026, beating Linette 6-3-6-2 in the quarterfinals, convincingly, dominantly, with the kind of scoreline that suggests a player who had fully solved the puzzle. But Miami is not Auckland. Hard Rock Stadium is not New Zealand. And Linette, fresh rested, riding the momentum of the biggest win of her season, is not the same player who walked onto an Auckland court in January. Eala faces Linette as the higher-seeded, higher-ranked player. She is the favorite on paper, but she also played 3 hours and 20 minutes on Thursday. She also had her gamesmanship buttons pushed by Siegemund. She also carries 390 points of pressure on her shoulders, because if she exits here, the drop from world number 29 will be significant and immediate. Eala said, I'm really pleased with how I'm handling everything as a whole. A lot of things have changed for me this year, so I think I'm doing a good job of keeping that balance of being hungry and staying happy and still working hard. Hungry, happy, working hard. 3 words from a player who understands better than any analyst can explain from the outside exactly what this balancing act requires. She is not pretending the pressure doesn't exist. She is not performing invincibility. She is saying, I know what I have to do. I know how to hold the tension between ambition and joy. And I know with every fiber of a career built from the Rafael Nadal Academy to the top 30 of the world that I belong here. And then she told Tennis Channel the story that broke the internet.
I was blowing up, my phone was blowing up, and I tried not to look at it a lot. And Rafa sent me a message, but I saw it like 4 days after.
He was buried in
Yeah,
your DMs.
so I left him undelivered for 4 days, and I almost died. Don't do that, guy, but he was super nice.
She left Rafael Nadal undelivered for 4 days because her phone was so overwhelmed with messages from 115 million Filipinos that a personal message from the greatest clay court player in tennis history got buried. And when she eventually discovered it and almost died, as she said, he was understanding about it, because naturally he was. Because what do you say to a girl who broke the internet so completely that she accidentally ghosted you? She continued, it was such a pleasure to share the court with him. He gave me some tips on my forehand and a few other small pieces of advice. This is the first time I've ever hit with him in my life, and it's just a memory that will last forever. Forehand guidance from Rafael Nadal after accidentally leaving him undelivered for 4 days. And then she went out and played the longest match of her WTA career and said she was fresh as a flower. This is the girl that Magda Linette praised without being asked. This is the girl that 280,000 people watched a highlight reel of within 3 hours. This is the girl coming for Saturday's center court with the noise of 115 million people behind her back. If Eala wins on Saturday, she faces a potential 4th-round match against 13th seed Karolina Muchova, a 2-time Grand Slam finalist who knocked her out at the US Open last year. The draw has not gotten easier. It has gotten harder. Every round is a former top 10 player, a Grand Slam champion, a veteran who knows the game at a molecular level. But that is the thing about Alexandra Eala that the numbers cannot capture and the head-to-head records cannot measure. She does not care who is on the other side of the net. She did not care that it was Swiatek last year. She did not care that it was Goff at Indian Wells. She wrote deja vu on the camera after beating Siegemund, because coming back to Miami, coming back to this court, coming back to the place where everything changed, that is not pressure for her. That is home. She said it herself. I came to Miami last year as a wild card. Now I'm in the third round again, so I'm really happy. And especially having been able to compete at this level today against an amazing fighter. Really happy. In the middle of defending 390 points, in the middle of the longest match of her career, in the middle of the gamesmanship and the pressure and the weight of an entire nation's hope. Really happy. And Magda Linette, the woman standing in her way, the woman who just slayed a giant, the woman coached by one of the sharpest minds in the history of women's tennis, looked at all of this and said not a single negative word. She said, "I am happy that Filipinos are being exposed to tennis." Saturday, the court fills, the flags go up, the noise starts. And somewhere in that roar, underneath every chant, inside every banner, across every face of every Filipino who stayed up past midnight or bought an expensive seat or flew across the country to be in that stadium, is the same message that Magda Linette delivered without anyone asking her to. She belongs here. We always knew it, and now even the opposition is saying so. Let's go, Alex. Saturday is yours. The Eala versus Linette match is happening Saturday on center court at the Miami Open. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now, smash the like, ring the bell, because every single time Alex Eala walks onto a tennis court in 2026, history is made. And Saturday will be no different.